crew, welcome back to ASTROHUNKS, the series in which I dissect the birth charts of your favorite male celebrities for your viewing pleasure. In today's episode, we are going to be looking at the birth chart of one hot tamale, Keanu Reeves. I guess this is a guy that needs no further introduction. Keanu Reeves has a career that spans over 35 years. Just saying, that makes me feel really old. But he was one of my first on-screen crushes. I know him from Speed. He was phenomenal in that role with Sandra Bullock. He was also incredibly hunky and sweet in the movie called Point Break. Of course, later on he became quite famous because he played in the Matrix franchise and of course, more recently in the John Wick phenomenal franchise. Guys, I'm not really into like action movies, but you know, this one really got me. I don't know why. I think it's the fact about a guy avenging his dog that really got to me. He also is an actor that was incredibly ridiculed for his kind of cartoony-like or robot-like performances, and there's a reason for that, a deeply astrological reason for that. I'll get into it in a second. This video, I'm going to tell you the 5 important tips of why I think Keanu's birth chart is interesting and what it can tell us about the really interesting aspects that his planets are making between each other. So let's take them all one by one. Our boy Keanu is incredibly blessed. He has 4 planets, a stellium, what we like to call in astrology, in his first house. Yes, Keanu is a Sun in Virgo, conjunct Pluto in Virgo, conjunct Uranus in Virgo. Are you tired yet? Conjunct Mercury in Virgo. It's phenomenal to have so many strong placements right on top of your rising, so right on your capacity to attract new opportunities in your life and to fulfill your destiny. He was 100% karmically bound in this lifetime to become somebody important. But here's the thing, all of these planets are in humble, hardworking, modest, incredibly rational, emotionally detached sign of Virgo. So his legacy was bound to be one quite humble and modest. But I do want to point you to a really important aspect in his chart. Cue the photo. Aha, did you notice something interesting there? Well, he doesn't only have the stellium. By the way, guys, for those of you who are new to this, a stellium is just a concentration of planets in a particular sign. If it's more than 3, it's considered to be a stellium, and stellium comes from the Latin word stella. So you have a stella, a star, or a stellium, a cluster of stars. And that means that you have something important to accomplish in this lifetime. Those of you that got birth chart interpretations with me know exactly what I'm talking about, because in my birth chart interpretations, I like to dedicate some space to try to explain to you how the stellium energy is affecting you. People that have a strong stellium in their charts are loners by nature. They are meant to concentrate in this lifetime on one particular area where that stellium appears in their chart. This also gives me the insight that Keanu is a really old soul. He incarnated in this lifetime with so much energy concentrated in his first house, because he's meant to go over some of the aspects related to first house matters. And what does the first house rule? Well, the body, the identity, the consciousness, the awareness that you are an individual. It is the house naturally ruled by feisty, impulsive, determined Aries. So he is a Virgo that acts a little bit like an Aries, and he is also a creative introvert, a loner, a person that needs to spend a lot of time on his own in this lifetime. That's why when he tried to establish a family earlier on in his life, that wasn't karmically possible for him. And if you guys know his background a little bit, he had a girlfriend who actually got pregnant, and unfortunately that situation ended in quite a traumatic way, with the baby being stillborn and with his girlfriend dying a couple of months after that event happened. So there are a lot of karmic strongholds placed on him, And the reason for this, and what I wanted to mention at the beginning, but now I'm just stampeding at this point in the interpretation, is that he has a stellium opposing his Saturn. Saturn, the ruler of karma, the creator of obstacles in any birth chart, the one that stops, halts, makes us wait, the one that gives us rewards only if we do the hard work that is required of us, and if not, he's only going to give us depression, anxiety, and a mother load of failed regrets and lack of successes. Saturn is a pretty heavy taskmaster. It's interesting because his Saturn is actually in one of the softest signs of the zodiac. Pisces is quite a boundaryless energy. It's creative and it's imaginative, it's soft, it's artistic, it's unconditionally loving, it's forgiving. Some people might see it as some sort of like doormat energy, but that's only with low vibing Pisceans. Usually Pisceans that are quite high vibing tend to become quite artistic, quite spiritual people. They're very wise, they're very funny, they're very loving and yielding. Our Keanu has his Saturn in Pisces strongly karmically linking through that red thread in his chart, his stellium conjunct his ascendant. He was bound to grow slowly into his identity. That's why he comes across as very stiff and emotionally detached, a little bit like a bit of a silly dude, you know. He comes across as not that intelligent, quite beautiful, because Saturn tends to preserve the features and gives a sense of purity to the people that are affected by such placements. But he is a late bloomer. He was destined to become a late bloomer, and as you can see it at the moment, he has a fantastic career, and I'm sure that he's earning more money than he intended to earn in his lifetime, and that is Saturn. Saturn gives him the rewards, the successes, the public acclaim, the respect of the people in his line of work, slowly throughout time, releasing the gifts as he is maturing. Saturn crystallizes us, you know, it like freezes us. If you are born with Saturn in the first house, Saturn opposite your ascendant, a Capricorn ascendant, Moon conjunct Saturn, Venus conjunct Saturn, Mars conjunct Saturn, you have to do a lot of hard work. You have to put a lot of effort, and that effort usually is quite predictable. It relates to a part of your life and your consciousness where you are aware that if you don't do that work, things are not going to work by themselves. It's a part of our chart that is devoid of magic. And Keanu has it in one of the most self-sacrificing, unconditionally loving sign, Pisces. Not only that, but he has it in his 6th house. I know it's a little bit strange because you would imagine, wait a minute, Lexi, the ascendant is the 1st house, the descendant is the 7th house, and if Saturn is opposing all of that stellium in Virgo in Keanu's 1st house, then how come his descendant is in the 6th house? Well, his descendant is actually spread across the 6th and 7th houses, and it all depends on the degree of his ascendant. If his ascendant is at a 1st degree of Virgo, then he tends to have that really beautiful correspondence with the 7th house. But as his ascendant is progressing, reaching Libra, then the houses are a little bit skewed. I hope this makes sense, guys. But this in a way shows how people with the same ascendant can have planets in different houses, you know, and how our charts are colored in such unique and interesting ways. Coming back to Keanu and his 6th house is Saturn. The 6th house is the house of service. It is the house of hard work, the house of dealing with the nitty-gritty details that create our environment, our reality. It is the house naturally ruled by Virgo, and he has Pisces there, the opposite sign on the astrological wheel to Virgo. So he is a lot about blending together his inward contradictions, and he had to learn how to do this slowly throughout time. People with Saturn and Pisces need to put in a lot of work in forgiving, in being kind, in letting go, in not arguing with people. I know this personally because my mother has Saturn and Pisces, and I've seen it how it plays out in her chart. My mother incurs the best rewards in her life when she is forgiving, when she is yielding, when she is able to let go of things. And this is exactly the same kind of generational marker that Keanu has as well, because they were born closely around the same time. having Saturn there in the sixth house shows that he has a very robust sense of health. Saturn freezes things, so it's freezing his capacity to get into injuries. It's also freezing his capacity to prove himself at work, because to some extent the sixth house not only rules over our health, our acts of service, and our capacity to take care of ourselves and of everyday administration, but it also rules over everyday work situations. So he actually had to put in a lot of effort. He had to wait for his opportunities to come towards him. And I think he drew a lot of opportunities throughout his lifetime, but he had to put in that work of being generous, of being kind, of being giving. So what we see nowadays, the Keanu that we love and admire and appreciate nowadays, is actually the Keanu that successfully passed his first Saturn return and his second Saturn return. So this is why he's receiving so much love and acclaim, because he successfully made his Saturn in the sixth house in Pisces work for him. Number 2, our man here has his North Node in Gemini, and this makes his South Node in Sagittarius. His South Node is ruled by Jupiter. He comes from a past lifetime of riches, abundance, glory, awards. He could have been an important public dignitary, a politician, a philosopher, even a world leader in a past lifetime. So he carries this energy with him in this current incarnation, which I get to see very strongly represented here by Pluto in the first house. But he's supposed to shift that identity. He's supposed to transmute some of the negative aspects of his ego by becoming humble, by being modest. I think that in a past lifetime, our Keanu might have done some things that were a bit beneath him. He might have been disrespectful, he might have been arrogant, his ego might have been built on something that was not with pure intent. And this why in this incarnation, our man came with a stellium of powerful planets in the rational, brainy, but sometimes ego-driven sign of Virgo, and this stellium is karmically bound by the red thread in his chart, in opposition to Saturn in the giving, loving sign of Pisces, and in the sixth house of service, of working for other people. So Keanu was brought into this lifetime to let go gradually of abundance, to let go of the idea that he is right, to let go of having the moral high ground. The more energy he puts into trying to be successful on his own, being competitive, being the best guy around, the less satisfied and fulfilled he will feel on the inside. I think that he felt from a very early age a desire to collaborate with other people, a desire to contribute in a very sweet way, to communicate with other people, to talk about random everyday events, maybe even to gossip a little bit, to get into the habit of communicating more often. That's because his North Node is in Gemini and his South Node is in Sagittarius, which kind of makes me think that this guy almost had it as his life path to become a little bit more skeptic, to be a little bit more pessimistic. No wonder that we were granted this beautiful string of funny, sad Keanu memes, right? Sad Keanu meme is not only showing his stellium energy, which, as I mentioned in the first part of the video, talks about a person that is craving to become a loner, but it's also showing his North Node in Gemini, which is making him be a little bit of a skeptic, a little bit of a person that kind of needs to see or touch things in order to believe them. He is meant to let go of being overly optimistic and on his need to travel and explore. What he is meant to do in this lifetime is to just be part of a team, learn how to connect with people in his local environment. That's why he's such a people's person, and that's why he has become an integrated part of the community in which he works, and that tends to take a priority over his desire to win awards or his capacity to create abundance. In this lifetime, however, he is brought here to talk about everyday details, to focus on what's important in a day-to-day basis, to do routine things, to take care of his health, and to just go to work, earn his paycheck, say his lines, and come back home and rest. So let's talk about the third marker in Keanu's chart. Scrunched in between his midheaven in Gemini and his North Node in Gemini and the stellium in the first house lies another interesting almost stellium. I personally don't like to see 3 planets, or I don't consider it as a stellium, but some people might consider that. There is a conglomeration of planets nonetheless in his 11th house. So he has Mars in Cancer, Venus in Cancer, and also we have here his moon is in Cancer. So whenever I see a person with the moon in Cancer, this tells me very quickly, right off the bat, something really important about this guy's inner world and his connection to his mother. It is top-notch, okay? People that have a moon in Cancer, they have an exalted moon. And especially since I see from his birth chart here that his moon is not afflicted. Having an afflicted moon means that you have a lot of tense squares or you have oppositions to your moon. But our man here has only trines and sextiles. Internally, this guy is balanced. He could, however, feel lower on energy during a new moon and higher on energy around a full moon, because the moon in Cancer follows the energetic cycles of the lunar pattern that we see in the sky. So his energy could be increasing for 2 weeks each month, and then his energy could be decreasing. Not only that, but his moon is conjunct Mars, which kind of adds an extra layer of energy to his moons. Normally a moon in Cancer by itself would be relatively sensitive and sweet and not that passionate, but when you see a moon conjunct Mars, Mars kind of gives it an extra layer of spiciness to it. So our guy is passionate, not only sensitive, he feels things very deeply. And I think that especially in the first part of his life, whenever he felt something, he acted on his feelings. Moon conjunct Mars. Moon emotions, Mars action. And to add a beautiful layer to this combination, we also have Venus in Cancer. Venus in Cancer is super motherly. They love to take care of people. The way in which Venus in Cancer people relate to the environment is almost as if they make the world their family. They are very cuddly, they love to take care of pets, they love to take care of children, and they tend to be quite family oriented. So I genuinely feel that it's kind of heartbreaking he hasn't actually settled down and had his own family. I do think that what happened to him in his earlier part of his life, when karmically he was kept in that stronghold by Saturn and he had to focus primarily on his career rather than his family life, and he lost his girlfriend and the child that they might have had together, I think that left a deep imprint on him, because with 3 planets in Cancer, I think he was ready, set and able to become a phenomenal father, but it just so happened that karmically he had other work to do, and we saw what came after that. We saw the Matrix trilogy, we saw John Wick, and we saw him appearing in a number of really important movies that ended up defining our current perspective of him as a respectable actor, not just some guy that randomly played Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula or some stoned dude. So not only does Keanu have his Saturn and Pisces in the 6th house, but he has a very, very lucky influence. Normally, a Jupiter in Taurus isn't necessarily exalted, but our man has his Jupiter in Taurus in the 9th house. I keep saying our man because I'm just so biased in this video, honestly. I just find him so sweet and endearing, and his birth chart is such a testament to the fact that he is genuinely a kind person. Not only that, he had to work at becoming a kind and modest person, which kind of makes me feel so proud of him. Well done, Keanu, well done. Thank you for giving us a wonderful example of how you can work with your Saturn, for giving us all hope that one day we can be like you, oh great master. Jupiter in Taurus is actually quite a stable energy. Jupiter in combination with Venus, because Venus rules Taurus, is quite pleasurable, quite abundant. But he has it in the 9th house, the house naturally ruled by Sagittarius, the house that represents the higher mind, our capacity to feel free, our capacity to explore, to travel the world. So he genuinely feels like he's very free in this lifetime. He feels like he gets to explore. He feels like he might have a lot of time on his hands to study, to practice, to train his mind, to come into contact with a lot of international people. This is a gorgeous influence, and what I can see from his chart is that his Jupiter has relatively harmonious aspects. It only entails 1 square to Saturn, but usually astrologers don't interpret Jupiter square Saturn as a personal detrimental aspect because it's more of a generational marker. So I see here that with his Saturn in Pisces and with his Jupiter in Taurus, this guy also has a very strong sense of feeling grounded, of feeling stable in himself. He gets to be both pragmatic, and of course he is with so many planets in Virgo, but he also gets to be quite emotional, and of course he gets to be like that with Saturn in Pisces and almost the stellium in Cancer. So he has the best of the both worlds. He is also quite emotional and sensitive, but on a very pragmatic, grounded level. Hey crew, Lexi from the future here. I was just editing this clip and realized that I cannot count. I promised you 5 markers and I forgot to mention the 5th one, so here it is. Another important aspect in Keanu Reeves' birth chart is his Neptune in Scorpio. Why is his Neptune in Scorpio so significant? Because I think it gives us another indication of why his destiny was to become an actor. If we take his Neptune in Scorpio in combination with his North Node in the sign of the multifaceted, intelligent creator, Gemini, then you can actually see how destined our man was to become an on-screen legend. So his Neptune in Scorpio is really beautifully aligned with all of those planets, that cluster of planets in Cancer in his 11th house, the house of social groups, honors, and vocation. And they're also both supporting in a sort of pyramid-like formation the Virgo energy in his 1st house of his identity. So he was meant to join important social groups. He was meant to follow and walk down the path of his vocation. He was meant to fulfill his dreams. Neptune is the fulfillment of your dreams, bringing the fantasy into the reality through the power of his mind, through the way in which he communicates, because his Neptune in Scorpio is in the 3rd house, the house of the community, traditionally ruled by Gemini. So we see already how these things are blending in his chart. So I do birth charts as well. I'm open for orders. If you're interested in working with me, I would be super happy to read your birth chart. I also create tarot readings, I create educational clips, the works, yeah? Thank you so much for listening. The next episode is gonna be with another Virgo. I'm sending you so much love. Bye guys! Mwah!